Our reading this morning is from Rumi, as Thomas mentioned. This is called The Guest House. Some of you may be familiar with this poem. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He or she may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Thank you.
Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. This is a big ask, isn't it? To be grateful for whoever and whatever comes. I take this poem as my text for the day with some trepidation, because here's what I don't want. I don't want you to hear me saying that we don't really have to worry about the hard stuff in our lives. I don't want to give you this like cheerful, perky message that if we only look at things in the right way, we'll realize life isn't really hard, or even the bad stuff is really good in the end. That is not what this is about. That would be a very unskillful and ignorant message, and unkind as well. So let me say one thing clearly. Life is not easy. And some days it hurts a lot. And some days it is really hard. We all know this. But let me tell you why I think this poem is worth spending some time with, though. In this poem, I hear a lot of wisdom about how to live through hard days and still find joy. How to laugh at absurdity and bow to reality, and how to welcome whatever comes as a teacher, or at least to try. And I want to learn from that. This month, our Soul Matters theme is the practice of invitation. What does it mean to really practice invitation as a quality in our lives and our community? And so today we're taking that question inward and asking, what would it mean for each of us to invite in everything in our lives, the good, the bad, and the ugly? Spiritual writings in every tradition tell us that this is part of what spiritual maturity looks like, to keep an open heart for whatever is happening. And so we come to our poem for the day. This poem, a very loose adaptation of Rumi, the greatest of the Sufi mystical poets of Islam, here adapted from English translations by the American poet Coleman Barks. This poem that tells us whatever we're feeling, whether it's joy or sorrow, whatever thoughts cross our mind, whether they're virtuous thoughts or selfish thoughts, welcome them all. And not just welcome them, not just invite them in, but actually be grateful for them. This is the hard part, I think. Be grateful for whoever comes because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. The poem starts, this being human is a guest house, a guest house. And it continues every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. This is not easy. I've heard this poem so many times, and yet it's not easy. Let's stay with that image of the guest house for a bit. The poem tells us that to be human is to be a guest house, doors open wide to whoever or whatever comes. The very purpose of a guest house is to welcome whoever comes, to provide hospitality. So I have to ask, is this really the way we're supposed to be, to welcome joy and sorrow equally? I find this a very strange and challenging idea. Many of us, including me, are not very good at it. We want to welcome the emotions that feel good and push away the ones that don't. We don't want to be a guest house. We don't want to be open to the emotions that hurt. And yet, when you think about it, I mean, that is exactly what we are. We do feel sorrow sometimes. We do feel anger, shame, all of it, and it is not in our control. It is not in our control. It shows up whenever it shows up, knocking on our door, demanding admittance. And so I have to conclude that this text is actually quite correct. This being human is a guest house, like it or not. It's how it is. It means experiencing so many different emotions and thoughts, and it's really not in our control what is showing up at any one time. One moment, joy, another moment, sadness. That's how it is. And so here comes the challenge. The poem says, whatever comes, welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. I don't want to diminish the enormity of this ask. This poem is asking us to welcome even the biggest sorrow, the most painful experience as a guest. So I want to say, I think this teaching is very powerful, and we have to be really careful with how we use it. This is not a teaching that we can force on somebody else, right? So if you have a friend who's going through something painful, you're not going to say to them, you should really welcome your sorrow as a guest, right? I know that you know this. You're not going to do that. We do not have the right to tell anybody else how they should feel or how they should make meaning out of their pain. And yet, making meaning and finding hope in our own most joyful and most painful experiences is exactly the work that each of us will have to do over and over in our lives. And so I offer this poem to you as a possible guide, a guide that has been of great help to many people, myself included, and the hope that it will be of service to you as well. And I'll be honest, I really struggle with this challenge to invite in whatever we're feeling. As I mentioned, I'm not particularly good at it. I don't much like feeling sad. It's not easy for me to welcome sadness as a guide from beyond. My default mode when I feel sad is to distract myself, read a book, play a game on my phone, call a friend. Like I will do anything except just actually feel sad. I wonder if that's true for you too. But if instead of distracting ourselves, if we could just ask, how could I welcome this sadness? If we could just ask that, what would open up? I'll share just a little bit of my own story. I'm remembering when I first moved to Williamsburg, Virginia, where I am today. It was in 2017. And at that time, my parents had both died fairly recently, my dad in 2014 and my mom in 2016. And as my husband John and I were just starting to set up our home, I noticed that I was missing my parents much more intensely than I had in a long time. It was so bittersweet to me to realize, oh my God, this is the first time I've lived someplace in my entire life that my mom and dad had not been to and would never see. It was a fresh grief that this was the first chapter of my life that they would not be a part of, at least physically, though I know they would have loved it here. But as I asked myself, what would it be like to welcome that sadness? I felt a sense of peace opening up, a sense of appreciation for everything they gave me, a lot of good memories, a lot of love. And the sadness was there, but in a way, it was a guide. In a way, it was a guide helping me connect back to all the positive memories and everything that I was carrying forward because of them. But okay, I don't want to make us too sad because, of course, joy can be our teacher too. And so I'm also thinking about this story we shared today of the bear and the mouse. I so wanted to share this with you because it strikes me how wonderful it is that this mouse, this little avatar of joy and connection and fun, keeps persisting, even with this cranky bear who wants no part of it. This bear who does not want to run a guest house. I bet some of us know what it is to feel a little bear-like, introverted, maybe a little grumpy sometimes, not sure about anything we're not already comfortable with. I know what that feels like. And some of us know what it is to feel mouse-like, happy, wanting other people to be happy. And so it strikes me that all of us bear types have cause to feel so grateful for the mouse people who persist in shining their light into our lives and helping us feel the joy and the connection and the fun that live in us too, even perhaps inspiring us to stand on our heads or at least tell a funny joke now and again, helping us say, come on in to the unexpected visitors who knock at the door. So, how about you? What do you need to invite in? I want to close by reading the poem just once more. And then I invite you to take a few breaths in silence to reflect on what's coming up for you. Because I can preach all day long, but the real teacher, the one who knows how to guide you, is already inside you. So let's listen. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still Treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Let's take a few breaths to reflect together in silence. Thank you. Thank you for practicing with me. In gratitude for the guide that lives in our heart and the guests that knock at our door, whether bidden or no, let us say, Amen.